Welcome back to the channel, folks. You're sitting with that brother of light. We're about to drop a little wisdom in your left ear and knowledge in your right. So it is election 2024. And if you have been following me for quite some time, you know that we are always interested in politics of our country and the challenges that we face. I wanted to stop quickly and have a conversation with you about our current political climate. You know, I was reading an article by NBC News how our current president, Biden, has a 20-point deficit on handling the economy, which means he's going to struggle against Donald Trump. I don't even know where to begin. So we're going to get right into it right after this. Okay, so let's dive right in. Now, as many of you know, we spent most of last year with Donald Trump being in the news. All of his court appearances, accusations, lawsuits, and the challenges that the former president has faced. Yet and still, there is no challenger within the Republican Party who can seem to dethrone the de facto Republican nominee. I mean, Nikki Haley's running, but is she really? No offense to Nikki Haley. And what is even fascinating with his 70, 80, 90 plus lawsuits in Georgia, New York, being taken off the ballot, the current Supreme Court case that is currently being considered on whether or not he should be on the ballot in Colorado. A president that seems to be absent, who doesn't have all of these challenges before him. When it comes right down to the projections, it seems that Donald Trump is leading him. And I wonder, I mean, are we crazy? Is the American political process absolutely insane? Now look, I never confess or profess my political leanings. I always attempt to be fair and balanced whenever I look at our two-party system. I hold fast to the belief that I am just not a fan of extremists on either party. But like you, I have conversations with my friends and family about the challenges that we face in this nation, whether that's crime, whether that's immigration, whether that's the economy. And even with low unemployment, I believe unemployment right now, as of this recording, is about 3.7%. The stock market is performing quite well, breaking records. And yet, President Biden struggles with the perception of how well or how frail the American economy is. And that's not the only thing that he's challenged. I think I'm going to start with Biden first. And I'm going to do my best to withhold my personal opinions about our current president and vice president. But boy, It's like a hot mess. We have the war in Ukraine that continues on. The lives of 3 American soldiers were lost. With it facing potential spread of war or an escalation in war with Hamas. And we've drawn a line in the sand there. And our president doesn't seem to be as attentive as we would like him to be, given the issues that concern us as Americans. And I know full well that the president doesn't make these decisions in a silo, that he has advisors around him and counselors and experts in government policy and procedures, and he has his generals that represent all 5 or 6 branches. And we just can't seem to pull it together. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm scratching my head because it is a very good chance that the contender for the highest seat in our land, when he's not flying to court in some state, is a realistic threat to our current president. There are acolytes of Trump that refuse to accept his personal shortcomings. The lawsuit, I think, that just went against his favor. 2 of them that went against him. One was the lawsuit against, I believe her name is Jean Carroll. She was awarded $83 million. I think she was only asking 20-something. And then we have the lawsuit he just lost in trying to claim presidential immunity. It's like a 3-ring circus in our halls of government. His lawyer was either fired or left. And I mean, we are 7, 8 months away from having to make a decision as the American people. And it's not just tried and true Republicans that believe we need President Trump back in the office. African Americans are starting to leave the Democratic Party because they don't believe that they speak for them anymore. I had a really interesting conversation with a gentleman an African American gentleman who is so pro-Trump, believes that we need him in the White House, believes that he will turn the economy around, believes that he will end the wars that we are currently being threatened by. And for the life of me, I don't get it. I don't know if our collective consciousness in this country is one of just pure insanity. And I know that sounds like I'm anti-Trump. I'm not, for the reason that you believe that I would be. Not political, not my affiliation, association with him. I just believe he's very dangerous, as we saw on January 6th, to the safety and security of our nation. Every political figure, there are pros and cons. But consider this. When you blow a dog whistle to extremists within America, and there's a riot on January 6th, we should be concerned. And the fact of the matter is, most Americans, 51, 52%, believe that Trump should not be held accountable for his actions. makes absolutely no sense to me, and I'm not sure if it makes sense to you. And why I'm pushing out this episode and why we will be focused on the politics during this election cycle is because I believe that we are on the precipice of really defining not only who we are as a nation, but also our standing in the global arena. And folks, it doesn't look so good. We have friends in Europe that are really concerned about our thought process, what we think, how we act. Are we xenophobic? How we're handling immigrants? I mean, like in New York, for example, you had immigrants that actually attacked police officers. Regardless of how you feel about police officers, that's just not okay. And I'm speaking as a person who migrated to America at a very young age. So this is in no way a slight on those immigrants who come here legitimately for a better life. But boy, the press just doesn't look so good. And then you have states like Florida and Texas sending migrants, busing migrants to sanctuary cities. And you're having the mayors of those cities say, we can't handle the influx of people coming to our states, which just leads to a hotbed of confusion, strain on resources, jobs, just wow. Wow. And it's concerning. What future are we leaving for the next few generations when most of us, and I say most of us because if I looked at a poll, I believe last night, that said that if Trump versus Biden were to undergo an election today, Trump would beat President Biden 46-42. If we don't believe that the minds and souls of America are at stake, then we're not really paying attention. You know, my own personal challenges with our current president aside, really, I just don't think he's good for America. If anything, what we're learning as we watch his media circus is that it really is all about him. And I'll say this, it's not all negative. One of the things that I will give him credit for is the way he handled our judicial system. And if we're not paying attention, especially black people, if we're not paying attention, Trump is really highlighting and showcasing the inherent bias that goes along with our judicial system. And it's not about wealth. It's not about that he has money. It's just about the way that he is able to navigate through a system that is inherently corrupt. I mean, let's just compare and contrast that our president has paid off, given hush money to women that he has sexually assaulted. No ifs, ands, or buts. No way to run around it. And yet when I talk to people that support him, men and women, they almost blame the victim. And then if you compare that to someone, let's say Jonathan Majors, for example, who was found guilty of a lesser offense. I'm not saying it's because former President Trump is non-black or not a person of color. I'm saying that he has surrounded himself with a team. He goes on the offensive against judges, and they seem to back off. If we don't take a lesson from that and start challenging the powers that be and the institutions that have been established, there's something wrong with us. And that is one of the positive things about a former president. is how he is calling out the corruption within these systems. The only problem is just for his own benefit. And I sort of see an ancillary benefit to where Americans who don't have that influence, who never sat in that seat, who have been railroaded through our legal system and coerced almost into taking plea deals, it needs an overhaul. It's about the only positive thing I could say about him in that sense. I think the burning question in my mind is that if he blew a dog whistle, there's something about the 14th Amendment. There's the way that it's worded that talks about it. If a president causes an insurrection, then he is barred from running for office. And I believe there's a case that a lawyer brought after talking to his father, who was about 100 years old. Question is, did Trump do that while he was sitting or after it, right? So that's being considered as well. And, you know, in my military mind, it just seems like flipping treason. It's pretty clear to me. But I believe that President Trump is gonna skate through it because he can say it all he wants to, but ultimately people are gonna be responsible for their own actions. What a slope. And on the flip side, we have President Biden, who can't seem to freaking form a sentence. He's not dynamic. There's just been instances where he seems incompetent. And, you know, quite frankly, he's a crony. His whole career has been one of politics. And this is in no way a slight or meant to be disrespectful to the leader of the free world. I expect more concern and passion and intention from our leader for us to be the best version of ourselves that we are. And I know it sounds like here's the deal. There's whether you're a Republican or Democrat, we have to rightly discern the motivations from both parties. We cannot be afraid to criticize our elected officials when they're not working for us. You mean to tell me that other than who is it? Marianne Williamson is the only one challenging President Biden? You mean to tell me the only person challenging President Trump is Nikki Haley? And both of these gentlemen are in their 80s? We have no one else that we can present to the American people as an alternative. This is absolutely insane. So we're on the precipice of a very dangerous time in our country. Most electorates are almost apathetic. The American voter is kind of numb to the entire process. We have dug our heels into our respective parties and what we believe, and this just effed up. It's a turnoff. Our allies are looking at us like we've lost our freaking minds, and it feels like we have. It looks like we have. I don't get it. Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you understand what's going on? Do you understand the effects of it? And here's something else that I hadn't considered. So President Trump served our nation for 4 years. And then he lost the election, which he refused to concede. And now he has a very good chance of getting reelected. Can't get elected after that. So essentially, we would elect a lame duck president. That's exactly what we would do. We would think about that for a second. We would elect a lame duck president. And if he's shown us anything, it is that he is petty, vindictive, and a bully. And he bullies every single person that attempts to oppose him. Is that the kind of America that we want now? Some of you will say, well, we need that because we need to push back on this nation or this group or that group. Problem is, it's just not going to be those groups. It's within our own system. It's like, come on, people, wake the freak up, man, and see what's going on. This episode has absolutely no solution to what I'm watching. And we're going to spend this election season bringing episodes talking about those things that matter. As I've always done, whether I've talked about it here on Folks Unfettered or whether I've been interviewed in other outlets, I try to take a fair and balanced approach to our political system because it is important. I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine who works for a very large retailer, and what she had said to me was she did not know that 50% of the people that shop at their retail stores are on some form of assistance. Most Americans will look at the news and hear that the stock market's doing absolutely fantastic, record numbers, blowing the doors off, right, off of valuations. But what we don't realize, the basis of the economics is that there is a difference between the stock market, right, and the economy. And the stock market represents those stakeholders and global corporations and their ability to produce profits for their investors. The economy is you and I, the people that are working within those organizations, that are trying to put food on the table, that are watching their grocery bill just grow through the roof. Rents are out of control. I believe rent and mortgages are representing, 30-40% of someone's take-home pay. And so we'll look at that and we'll feel good. Our economy's doing great, but I can't afford a gallon of milk. 50% of the people at this large retailer are on some form of subsidy. The most vulnerable among us. I don't think we're paying attention. So we're gonna help you pay attention. I'm not gonna decide for you. I'm not gonna give you my slant. I'm gonna lay it out just the way that it transpires. We have President Biden, who for 3 years or so has managed. And then we have former President Trump, who, although he has all these indictments, between going from this state to go to court and trial and another state to go to court and trial and losing a lawsuit, having to pay out $83 million, and the circus that surrounds this man, it's wow. Boy, we have a decision ahead of us. Okay, folks, I'm not sure where we left off on our last episode. We had a little bit of a glitch, just cut the recording off, but I wanted to pick it up with this. So if you are like me and you have been following the news, then you know that, the political news that is, then you know that Trump and Biden both have their issues. So here's what I wanted to leave with you as we conclude this episode. We are in for a wild and woolly political season. On the one end, we've got a president that just made an apology about some comment he made about Hamas. On the other end, we have a contender on the Republican side that has ongoing legal issues. And these are our two potential candidates for the presidency of the United States. And as we're going to cover that during this season, I want us all to be more attentive to our own political leanings and the fate of our nation on both ends. I think Marianne Williamson just bowed out. She suspended her presidential campaign. Trump has no real contenders. He's got Nikki Haley. I wish her well in her campaign. Hopefully she'll position herself to be a more valuable candidate. Biden has absolutely no challenger whatsoever, which is problematic as far as I'm concerned. I'm not sure about you, but we need to reflect as we enter November, moving forward, what this looks like for us here in the United States of America, and whether or not our leadership globally is something that the world is not only reconsidering, but we need to reconsider ourselves. You know, you've heard me say this before, and I'm going to repeat this line: we have to do better. And we're just not. We're absolutely not doing our absolute best. We have PACs that are leveraging their influence to select political candidates. I know we can't please everyone in this nation, but we're not even trying. We're not even trying to fake it. It's just kind of going along to get along, so to speak. And yet there's no real solutions to everyday Americans' problems. So as we conclude this episode, I just wanted to let you all know that we will be following this political arena, and we hope that you will join us on this journey as we look at the fate of our nation, and that we will consider what these next 4 years are going to look like. So there it is, folks, in a nutshell. Thank you for joining us on this episode, and as always, I'm that brother of light, dropping wisdom in your left ear and knowledge in your right. We'll talk to you soon, and keep the faith.